have an easier solution. Just watch any modern horror films these days, and you'll start cringing at ghosts instead of actually being afraid of them. We opened this one with Pop and Aoyama. Yeah, literally on the first frame, we have a significant animation error, and I can already tell this is an Aoyama episode because the dude never seems to encourage animation QC. I swear, I can make a drinking game out of every lazy shortcut he uses when animating these shows, but I really shouldn't encourage guaranteed alcohol poisoning. Anyway, she was asking their creepy smiley moon advice on how to stay up because this running gag has carried over. And after the opening, we saw the new portal to the witch's world, which was at least a little more discreet as a fountain, though am I the only one reminded of the entrance to the trial grounds from Danganronpa V3? Anyway, they began setting up for the grand reopening of the Mahodo, but would be interrupted when a baby tried to take care of a baby. Pop was rightfully called out for upsetting essentially her niece, and unfortunately, this wouldn't be the last time she'd be a bad aunt, but more on that in a bit. Anyway, the Mahodo reopened, and we got some more Aoyama-isms with pretty much no animation here. I mean, I'll give it that it's a little more clever to use photos here rather than a slideshow like they did with the penultimate episode of the first season, but I'm still counting this and the reused Doremi animation as Aoyama laziness. Still, at least Reika had one of the best scenes of the episode. Bet Will Smith has a lot of those outside of his house right now. However, the fun times were again spoiled by Pop mistreating her niece, this time thinking it'd be a great idea to take the kid up a long flight of stairs to the roof.
Wrong!
Yeah, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I'm totally on Doremi's side in this episode. Pop is pretty unlikable with how she treats Hana throughout all of this, and I get it, she's still young herself, but at the same time, you do have to learn how to be careful with a toddler. I wouldn't mind this as much if she ended up learning something by the end, but spoiler, she kind of doesn't, and what's worse, she takes advantage of the kid. Yep, we got another Miki and Shifon situation here with the magical girl trying to use the toddler for their own benefits. In this case, she tried to build up her stamina to stay up for the witch's exam by using Hana as a constant alarm clock, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering the exam was the following night. I mean, again, I get building up your sleep resistance, but if you're just gonna carry over your fatigue from the previous night, then it's all gonna be for naught. Believe me, I have experience with this. I try to get as much sleep on Friday nights before the long Saturday night video editing sessions, which even then, they don't exactly work out either. Still, I guess we're supposed to get behind this little brat as our main protagonist for this episode, so she snuck out that night, and is the moon looking directly at her? Oh god, that thing really is Majora's Moon. You can't fool me! I'm playing the Song of Time! I will say, at least Pop did get some form of karma, as she was clearly nowhere near as good at taking care of Hana as her sister. It got to the point that her initial all-nighter plans started to fall apart, though thankfully for Hana's sake, an actually competent babysitter soon arrived. I think it was implied that Ompu left early so that she could check back later, but it's left pretty unclear here. Still, at least she did provide a nice scene where she performed a little lullaby for Hana. It was just a nice little song without too many unnecessary bells and whistles. It did work a little too well as it got Pop too, or at least I think it did, because that doesn't exactly look like a sleepy face. I mean, you do know that 420 was last week, right? But yeah, a nice sequence that, while clearly meant to save up on animation, it was at least very nicely storyboarded, so the bits with no animation didn't stick out that much. At least not as much as these very clearly reused animations from just a few minutes earlier. Again, I really wouldn't recommend making a drinking game out of all these Aoyama-isms, otherwise we'd all be dead by now. Anyway, Pop's plan seemed to work, even though she clearly catnapped at least a few times throughout the night, but whatever, it was good enough for her to go full Jim Carrey at one point.
The pen is blue. The pen is blue! The goddamn pen is blue!
We then got to see the new portal to the witch's world, which I will admit is a pretty cool effect, and I especially like the effect of the water ripples seemingly encompassing the entire Mahodo, along with this cool reflection of the moon, which now has its eyes closed. Anyway, rightfully concerned about her not even making it to the Botas, the Ojamajo soon fall behind. And sure enough, like a kid who tried to pull an all-nighter before the SATs, Pop was out like a light. Meanwhile, Hazuki over here being savage as hell. Not helping matters was Hana suddenly getting hungry, and since they didn't have a formula on hand, she decided to make some for herself.
Oh no, everyone run! Kurt Angle found the keys to the milk truck!
Milkomania is running wild!
This somehow woke up Pop, not exactly sure where she was to be able to hear Hana's crying, but whatever, and she saved the day with a rather blanket spell, or at least saved her niece and let her sister and friends drown. Nah, of course she saved everyone, but considering that she did make it in time for the exam, that means it'll have to be for another day, perhaps when she doesn't come up with an incredibly harebrained plan that screws herself up at the last minute and...
Vader!
All too easy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but this is more than a little bit of an ass pull in my opinion. I mean, putting aside the level 9 exam, which was never all that complicated, and the level 7 that we haven't seen yet, the level 8 and 6 exams involved at least some critical thinking and time management skills, and not just purely magical ability. So why does Pop get to skip grades while her sister and friends got blisters for their efforts?
Actually, I do have my own theories, but we'll save that for the closing thoughts in just a bit.
Anyway, the episode ended with a little more repeated animation as Pop fell asleep and referred to herself as Hana's big sister, though come on girl, we all have to accept our midlife crisis eventually and admit that we're aunts and uncles.
Okay, so obviously I had issues with the animation of this one, as I am an uptight stickler when it comes to this stuff. But even putting that aside, the writing for this one was nowhere near as good as the previous two, with Pop generally being pretty unlikable and yet getting disproportionately rewarded for her bratty behavior. Granted, the lot of that might have had to do with the fact that the series did get a sudden second season, but even then, I do wish Pop had learned some sort of significant lesson rather than literally sleepwalking through life.
I think it's pretty clear just by the first season that they never intended to let Pop advance in her witch studies by the time they were originally supposed to lose their powers. However, when they did get the green light for a second season, they couldn't just keep her at the same point, so I guess they figured they'd just rush through giving her a second wand and fairy. And as I've said, my main issue with this is that it feels inconsistent with what was required with the previous exams the Ojamajo took, and rather forced considering she'd cast just one spell that didn't even seem to take that much effort. Moreover, even if I were to give her more leeway, this doesn't feel earned from a character development standpoint, as Pop really didn't learn anything from taking care of Hana, like how to properly manage her sleep schedule rather than coming up with some asinine plans. And more importantly, taking care of an infant isn't just going to be a walk in the park. And if you think that's too mature of a lesson to teach the show's young target audience, well, I'll let Pinkie Pie speak for me.
Sometimes our desire for responsibility can outrun our actual ability to handle it.
But nope, everything just kind of worked out for her, and she wasn't even called out for initially trying to use the baby for her benefit as an alarm clock. As a result, and in spite of some good scenes like Ompu and the other Ojamajo trying to help the bratty half-pint, I really didn't care for this episode. Watching repeated animation is a little grating for me, but seeing a character have a rushed arc annoys me far more.
And with that, another month in this year is up, and yeah, it does feel like things are starting to pick up, ain't it?
I mean, our video production is running mostly at the same inconsistent pace, but with things opening up a lot more, it's just nice to be able to go out with a lot less issues. Which, coincidentally, is going to play a major part in the next part of the Tropical Rouge manga, so look forward to that coming out very soon.
Nailed it. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and... Oh, third day already? God, those things really end up sneaking up on you.